Alright, we should be live. Microphone looks good. Window capture should be good. Yep, there it is. Alright, so we're back. We're working on the Indoraptor. We are on the process of eliminating cards. Indoraptor currently has 233 cards on his list, and we need to get this number down to 60. And that is going to be a thing. Alright, so we're going to need to do some clumping of things to figure out what we what we have to work with. Alright, let's look at his ramp first. So, Soul Ring, Nature's Lore, Death Pits, Magmasaur, Reanimate. None of these are ramping me. Fire Ants, Hellkite, Steam Blast, Grim Monolith is a ramp. Earth, Heretic. Black Market Connections is, or Black Market rather, is definitely in here to help me get more mana, so. Rupture, Fires, Plague Spitter, Hull Breach, Bloodfire, Sharpshooter, Violence, Sad Robot, Alma's Reach, Stalker, Tribe Elder, Hole Hauler, Doubling Season, Farseek is a ramp spell. Rumbling Slum, Braid of Fire. Have I figured out how I'm using Braid of Fire yet? I suppose it's on my upkeep to activate things. That's gotta be the main reason for it. Alright, so it's still here to make mana for me for the time being. That's true. We can activate things like Pyrohemia. I think the main thought process was I was going to be doing things like activating Siobhan Hellkite and I guess Pyrohemia because of that, and similar cards. Because I don't think I have quite enough instants that I want to cast on my upkeep. Although if I do have any, that does allow me to use the mana there, so that way I have more mana towards Indoraptor afterwards. Alright, other things that ramp me. Make sure I didn't miss anything because I got distracted thinking out loud about this thing. Oracle is kind of ramp. There's also kind of card draw. Yeah, we'll put her on the list for right now. She is in here to get me more land, so that counts. One of the things about Koth is that I can use him to get more red mana, although that's going to be contingent on how many actual mountains the deck runs, whether that's a ramp effect or not. I mean, it's a ramp effect every turn after he's in play, because even if I only have 2 mountains, that's -2, add 2 extra red, so. East Within, Aurabrask, Blasphemous Act, Olivia is another pinger I can activate on upkeep with the Braid of Fire. Rakdos. Rakdos is weirdly in here to make my stuff cheaper. I think he qualifies as a way to ramp me. Zertod Druid is a ramp. Burnished Heart is a ramp spell. 14 out of 24. Gross and Xenagos don't ramp. Savage Punch. Atarka's Command lets me play an extra land, but that's not even close to the reason why I'm running it. It's definitely the 3 damage to each opponent and buffing my team. Like, those are the 2 modes I most expect to use. The other modes are in case I need them, but we'll take the Savage Vent Maw, though, because it adds 6 mana if it gets to attack. So, Thermo Alchemist, Chandra makes mana. Insult to Injury. Heb adds red mana post-combat. Yeah, no, he's definitely in here for his ability to make mana, so another one. 17 now. Ranging Raptors can find me land if I deal them damage. Sailback, Starve Extinction. Brass's Bounty is in here to make mana. 19 now. Blackblade, Trophy, Bedevil. No. Casualties of War, God Eternal Ronus. Phasebore. Cleave, Conrad. Greyhenge does add mana. I'm trying to get a high power creature into play. So, even though it starts at 9 mana, I'm not going to pay 9 mana for it with any kind of consistency. Clothis can add mana, but that's not what she's in here for. She's in here for the 2 damage to each player. Like, I can't guarantee, even with my fetch lands, that I'll be able to get mana from her consistently, so. Leyline Tyrant is in here partially for its mana. Ooh, I did not mean to cut it. Get back on there, Leyline Tyrant. Alright, so that's 21. Got room for a couple more. Magda and Goldspan are both in here to make treasure. Alright, so we're at call time right now. Come back to it, so. Alright, mana ramp. Soul Ring, Nature's Lore, Monolith, Market, Robot, Reach, Steve, Farseek, Braid of Fire, Oracle, Hoth, Rakdos, Druid, Burnished Heart, Awe, Chandra, Ebb, Ranging Raptor, Brass's Bounty, Great Henge, Leyline, Goldspan, and Magda. Alright. So clear all, go back to call time. Crackle with Power, Dragon's Approach, Flame Painter, Exponential Growth. None of these make mana. Alright, technically I'm primarily considering Bard class for shaving the colored mana requirements off of my commander, so. Yeah, oops. We also have Old Gnawbones here, so put that together. Opportunist, Storm Chaser, Unnatural Growth, Loner, Fable. Fable makes treasure from the Goblin. I don't know if that alone qualifies it. Like, is that the primary reason I'm running? I think I'm running Fable primarily because it's a value engine. Also, copying my creature and getting to attack with my creature gives me a lot more damage in a single turn, but it does also make treasure if I have a clear attack, or if I don't mind losing the token to make more mana. I don't know. That one's kind of hard to classify. Bootlegger Stash. Like, some of them I know I'm putting them in here in part or in whole because of their ability to make mana, so that's why they're on the list. Other ones, it's like, I don't know if this actually qualifies because it can make mana, but that's not the main reason I have it, or not a focal point for it. Similar to Sarenth Great Worm. Like, I can get the extra mana and I can use it for activated abilities, but I can't. Like, there's not a ton of artifacts in my deck for this thing to be ramping me into. It's not like I'm going to play, Darksteel Colossus or Mirror Battlesphere or something, where I just need all of this colorless mana to cast my spells. This is more using the colorless mana for part of the activation costs on my activated abilities like, Hellkite and Olivia and whatnot to deal damage to my things, or like Thornbite Staff's activation, or even its equipment. Like, in order to equip it to something to get the ball rolling, so. I suppose technically it's in here for that. It's also in here because I have a handful of cards that if I'm making artifacts, I get to deal more damage. And I'm already making a ton of treasure, so Landfall, make a Power Stone is just adding to the amount of stuff I can put on the table in one turn to get these things to deal more damage. But I don't know that I actually qualify it as ramp. It's definitely in here partially for mana production, though, so I guess it goes on the list. Rankle and Torbrand. Yeah, see, this is what they can make a treasure. That's not what they're in here for. They're in here for the extra damage they add to my other things for the remainder of the turn. Same thing with Vorinclex. He can get lands from my deck, so I hit my land drops consistently, but that's nowhere close to what he's in the deck for. Fall of Karandros, Fire Inscription, Mithril Coat, Curse of the Werefox. Decadent Dragon is definitely on the list because he makes treasure when he attacks, so that is a thing. Rowan is on here because of her discount when I've taken damage. Exonal, no. Roaming Throne. Ballspore Nexus, no. Fire Servant. Runescar Demon. Garrick. Chandra's Ignition. Ether Grid. Rekuseth. None of these are adding mana. Zavala helps with mana. Not Anarchomancer is in here to make my spells cheaper. Yeah, Ragavan is in here partially because he makes treasure. Like, yes, he also gets me spells sometimes that I can use to deal more damage, hopefully. But Ragavan is in here because at the very least I'll be making treasure off of him. And that will give me more mana to work with. So, Lena's in here to make mana. Copper Dragon. Not the Baylor. Descent into Avernus is damage dealing and treasure making, so that one's on the list. Omnivore, Scavenging Ooze, Necromantic Selection, Impact, Resonance, Pathbreaker, Vile Smasher. I just now noticed that I do not actually have Arcane Signet on the list, so that might be a thing I need to add in. We'll see. Dockside Extortionist is 1,000,000% in here for his mana production. We'll add him to the list. Altasaur, Collecting SWAT. These. Oh, Reaver Cleaver makes treasure. Brothers War is definitely in here to get 2 players to become vulnerable to my attacks, and then to deal damage to them on my next turn too, in case that didn't work out. Blast Furnace. None of these are treasure makers or anything. This thing makes a ton of treasure potentially, so that is on the list. Don't need Wrathful Raptors for this one. Blood God, no. Branching Evolution, Naeth, Bloodsucker, Blight, Gar, Saw in Half, Mana Crypt, takes mana. Ravenous T-Rex, and Blanca. Okay, so that is all of my mana production. All of its weird and myriad forms. Some old Gnawbones, Bootleggers, Agnes and Facebreaker, Sarenth, Dragon, Rowan, Selvala, Archimancer, Ragavan, Copper Dragon, Scent, Dockside, the Reaver Cleaver, Cavern Horde Dragon, and ye old standby Mana Crypt. Alright, so these are all of my mana producers right now. There are way too many of them, obviously. Like, even if we count some of them as other things also, this is way, way too much. Alright, Black Market takes a while to set up and costs 5 mana itself, so I think that one can go. Rate of Fire is useful on the turns where I'm like actually going off with all the stuff, but not to set it up, which is kind of counter to what I need it for. Like, I need the cheap stuff to be setting me up, and the more expensive stuff to be like, okay, now that I'm set up, this is going to push it over the top. So, I think we can get rid of Braid of Fire. Yeah, probably don't need Koth. Rakdos stays for right now. Savage Ventmaw is fine. Oh, that's true. I also have to consider the other dragon that's similar to Savage Ventmaw from the Commander set. Forget what its name is, but it might be better than Ventmaw. I think it's a little more expensive is probably the biggest thing, but it definitely adds mana. So let's see. It's just Forgotten Realms Commander. Hop over here. Got the set number thing. Scroll down to the gold cards. There it is. Cloth Unrivaled Ancient. Attacks add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the total power of attacking creatures. Spend this mana only to cast spells. I forgot about the restriction also. So Cloth is like, it can add a lot more mana, and one of the biggest things is casting Indoraptor, but that also means I can't use the mana. Like, if I use my mana pre-combat on spells, I have to have more spells post-combat besides the Indoraptor that I want to cast. Otherwise, the mana is not well spent. Whereas, if I could get the mana and then, like, throw some pings or something at the board, you know, deal, like, either activating Pyrohemia or having Chivon Hellkite just poke the opponents a couple of times before casting Indoraptor, that's a lot better use of the mana. Whereas with, like, because if I can give the creatures haste, I need to cast them pre-combat, so the spells would have to be like the instants and sorceries or the creatures that don't have haste and I don't have any way to give it to them. Where I'm just putting them on the board, possibly for something like the Warstorm Surge or the Hellkite that cares about my creature's power when they come into play. Alright, well, I'm already trying to decide if I want that dragon, but I was wondering if I would want this one more, like if it's an either-or situation, I can cut one of them but add the other one, and then keep that one. Yeah, I don't think we need Cough. I don't think we need Braid of Fire. We were on Savage Ventmaw. I think we'll stick with Savage Ventmaw for right now. There is an argument, though, to be made for spending one more mana to get a lot more mana, potentially. Also, this thing naturally has haste, where Savage Ventmaw doesn't. Chandra can deal 2 damage to each opponent as one of her things, so the fact that she can also give me extra red mana when I need that more, or, damage a creature. Also, having her emblem active means casting the Indoraptor gets an extra 5 counters just from casting him normally. Like, unless somebody gains hexproof in response. Neheb is an awful lot of red mana with what I'm trying to do. Very similar to the amount of colorless I can reduce all my spells with Rowan. So, like, Rowan is genuinely terrifying with the split-second Earthquake and, like, a non-top deck Bonfire where I have to hard cast it. It's like, okay, I've dealt how much damage to myself this turn? We'll just reduce the X's by technically that much. Like, if I want to deal 5 damage, so it's red and 10, but I've dealt like 7 damage to myself with my own spells, so it's technically red and 3 to deal 10 to a player and their creatures. Or to deal 5 to a player and their creatures, rather. I am very inclined to keep things like that. I guess ranging raptors is going to depend how easily I can ping the raptors versus how, once Indoraptor is in play, that's going to be the thing that I'm going to direct most, if not all of my I can deal a damage to a creature effects onto, but that doesn't mean I can't trigger things like the ranging raptors here in the meantime to set up. Like, if I spend 4 mana and deal 2 damage to them, and then I get 2 lands, now I have, 6 mana on my next turn at a minimum. Probably more than that, because the Raptor will come down turn 3, something like Olivia comes down turn 4, and I don't have the mana to ping them yet, so. But yeah, if I can use them that way, that's fine. Tyrant lets me bank red mana until I'm ready for my big turn, and if somebody kills them in the meantime, I just get to shoot them for a ton of damage, which will ruin my plans for casting a ton of spells in Indoraptor, but it's a nice consolation prize for not getting to do the cool thing with it, and it's only 4 mana to get it down, so very easy for me to cast it and possibly even bank a mana or 2 in the same turn even. Depending on what I have. Goldspan Dragon just keeps generating treasure, and also makes my treasure twice as potent for casting my spells, so Ogda gives me treasure, and lets me tutor dragons, which that might be the thing that's more impressive about her, is not the ability to make treasure herself, but if I were to cast Brass's Bounty and get like 6 treasures, assuming I have like an artifact mana source or something, if I get like 5 or 6 treasures from that and I can just cash in 5 treasures immediately for like the dragon that gives double strike to everything attacking my opponent, or one of the massive treasure making dragons like Gnawbones or Ancient Hellkite or something, or Ancient Brass Dragon rather. Yeah, I think the Bard class is one of the weakest things that I have. A lot of my creatures aren't legendary. I do have a few, but it's not helping with a lot of my creatures. I think many of my creatures are actually legendary. If I go look at this, unfortunately, I don't note that they're legendary because that's usually less of a thing. Also, it's not like I forget which ones are legendary normally. There's only like 2 or 3 creatures that are legendary that don't have a name that implies they're legendary to begin with. So far, none. It's like, what are the legendary creatures that I'm hoping to get a discount on my stuff? And the answer so far is not. And to get the counters on them. And the answer so far is not very. I don't even have one from Kamigawa, like Champions of Kamigawa, because the Grave Robber's not legendary till it turns over. So I'm never casting the legendary side of it. So Hidetsugu is actually my first legendary creature on the list. Stinger, Breath of Malfagor. Orabrask. Olivia. And keep in mind, this is 1 mana off of each of these so far, and an extra +1 counter for this thing. Rakdos. Perforos, because Perforos and Xenagos, because they're always creatures when you're casting them, even if they're not creatures when they come into play. And since they enter with the counter, they're still going to get the counter even if they're not online. So anyway, that's 6 now. Um, Ahab is 7. Yeah, this thing is looking super underwhelming right now. 2 gods are 8 and 9. Brand's 10. Conrad gets no discount because he's neither red nor green. Clothis is 11. Obosh is 12, but Obosh might be going. But he's on the list right now, so that's 12. 13 for Morag. 14 for Arnie. 15 for Magda. 16 for Torolf. 17 Vorinclex. For Gnawbone. Orfeo is 19. Magnus is 20. 2 Dominuses are 21 and 22. Natali's 23. But I might cut it because it's not on topic. Rankle and Torbrand's 24. Flex is 25. Rowan's 26. Sonal's 27. Seth's 28. Soval is 29. Ragavan's 30. Lena's 31. Arlax 32. File Smasher's 33. Andres is 34. Donna's 35. A is 36. Light's 37. Stars 38. Alright, so right now I have enough legendary things. There's something I want to check, though. Does Bard class affect, like, planeswalkers and whatnot, or is it just the creatures? Yeah, legendary creatures enter with a counter. Oh no, legendary spells, so it would also affect, um, like, the planeswalkers that are still on the list, and the 3 legendary artifacts, because I believe Skullport Nexus is a legendary artifact, and then the Embercleave and the Great Henge. Alright, so technically we still have enough. I'm not holding out hope for it, though. I'm pretty sure. Oh, and the Indoraptor itself. Oh, technically Blanca, too. So I'm not holding out a ton of hope for it, but for right now, there's too many things going on. Like, I have to cut a whole bunch of legendary spells first. Then we can seriously consider cutting Bard class, so. Alright, so Agnes is another thing that's currently on my. I probably wind up cutting it. The biggest thing against her is that the treasures enter tapped. So for Agnes, I basically need to be dealing damage from the treasures entering, which makes her a weird Hell Rider at that point. Or I need to be setting up for a future turn. You know, like I cast Agnes, I attack with, assuming I have something like Fires of Yavimaya out where my creatures have haste due to that, so Agnes can generate a bunch of treasure, so that way next turn, even though the treasure, like, even though I'm attacking with a bunch of creatures again to get damage through, I'm not going to be able to use the treasures for anything. The treasures that I had from the previous turn will hopefully be enough to cast all the spells I want to into Indoraptor. That's why she's on the list now. Also, I have a couple of things that let me sack treasures for other stuff, like the Facebreaker, and being able to get more things out of it. And like I said, there's like 1 or 2 that care when my treasures come in to deal damage as opposed to tapping them to deal damage, so. But yeah, the fact that they come in tapped is definitely holding Agnes back. So. Ruin, Selvala, Ragavan. There's always a chance I cut Ragavan because he's just raw power as opposed to actually being good and on theme with the deck. But the extra treasures help, the extra spells cast can help. Alright, so I know I'm cutting these 3. Let's go ahead and cut them off the list. So, Black Market Connections. Sorry, just Black Market. Connections is a different card. Off of the Hammer. And Braid of Fire. Alright, so we get those 3 off the list. Brings us down to 230. So 170 more cuts and we're good to go. There's not any other mana production I know I can cut. Anything that looks like it's going to underperform right now? No. Everything is either so cheap that it lets me get started or so potent once I'm started that I don't want to cut it. Because I feel like that's where I'm at with all of these. I have to deal damage to multiple players with Facebreaker to get more than 1 treasure in a turn. So that's a temptation. Decadent Dragon makes 1 treasure when it attacks. It's also a 4-mana 4/4 Flample, so that certainly helps it. Maybe it's Alina? Or Elena? Or I pronounce her name. Because she can only get me the mana on the turn the card came into play. That does make a ton of mana when the Indoraptor comes in with a high power. And it also, if I cast a dragon, that's usually like a 4 to 5 mana rebate. Well, 3 to 4 mana rebate because I have to spend a red. He's also a 5-drop 4/3. Yeah, maybe she goes too then. Just feels like a worse Sylvala at that point. So let's go ahead and cross her off the list. Alright, 229. Alright, in that case, what is my interaction? My removal spells. Kind of Pestilence. Like, I can absolutely use it to kill a whole bunch of things. Especially smaller creatures, but even the bigger stuff I can kill. Death Pits is definitely in here to help me kill stuff. Magmasaur. Fire Ants is more in here to trigger Enrage than it is actually to kill things. Hellkite is also in here for Enrage, but can kill things, which is kind of a stark difference. Like, I'm not going to keep activating Fire Ants in a turn in order to kill all of my opponent's stuff, even if I've gotten Thornbite Staff onto it. Because it's very unlikely that I will actually have the Massacre Girl situation where it just keeps hitting everything and the chain reaction kills everything. It is possible to do that, it's just very unlikely. I wonder if the ones that deal damage to everybody are a separate thing from my removal package. Hmm. Because a lot of these spells that can kill a whole lot of creatures are more in here to trigger Indoraptor and the other enraged creatures than they are in here to kill. The fact that they can kill everything is helpful, but they're mostly in here to like damage the board and trigger Indoraptor and get that ball rolling than they are in here to kill my opponent's creatures outright. In fact, some of them have a great deal of difficulty. Like, I'm looking at Steam Blast right now, and it's like, that is not going to kill enough stuff for me to be putting it in here with the idea that it's going to kill creatures. It will kill creatures, but it is mostly in here to deal damage to the Indoraptor and any other enraged creatures I happen to have at the time. Or to deal damage to multiple enraged creatures to make them deal more damage so the Indoraptor comes in with more counters. One of those two things. Hmm. So, do I make this a separate category then if my goal is to like at that point I take him off the list. Magmasaur is enough that I can leave it on. Pestilence though is definitely in here to trigger Enrage, but the Death Pits makes all the things that trigger Enrage actually kill everything instead. So I'm not 100% sure I want that because sometimes I want my guys to survive, but other times it's going to be like, yeah, no, I kill everything. That's fine. And I play Indoraptor. I dealt damage to everybody and everything, and now I have the only creature on board. Crashing Wumpus, Flame Rift, Rupture. Rupture kind of falls into the Magmasaur category where it does so much damage all at once that it can actually be a removal spell. Same with Bloodfire Colossus. Reeve, Sad Robot. Grave Robber. No removal spells, right? I didn't miss anything. I did gloss over Hull Breach. Artifact and enchantment removal. I do want to put all the removal together because some of it's going to be able to hit everything, so I just want to have it all together. I'm considering it. Coal Hauler, Doubling Season, Farseek, Grumbling Slum. We took Pestilence off the list. We're leaving Pyrohemy off. Molten Disaster is a full-on earthquake, so that can definitely hit enough stuff to qualify. Reflection, Violent Ultimatum is removal. Alphagore, Oracle. Chain Reaction can kill most, if not everything in play. Slag Storm, I think, just barely does enough. I think it needs to deal 3 or more consistently to kill enough creatures. So I'm going to let it onto the list, but that one's probably the borderline. Blasphemous Act is definitely a board wipe, so... Bonfire of the Damned. Born Horror, Rakdos Charm. Can destroy an artifact, and it is partially on the list for its versatility. Yeah. Like, I mostly put it on the list because it can exile a graveyard, panic button against Reanimator, and it can deal a ton of damage to players that go wide. So that level of versatility is what's got it on the list, but yes, it does actually kill an artifact, so I guess I'm gonna grab it. Savage Punch. Also, the fight cards, do I put them on the list as removal? Because they can definitely kill creatures. Like, I have enough big bodies that they can realistically kill something, but... maybe the fights need to be their own subcategory. Arc Bond is definitely in here to board wipe. Very similar to things like Chain Reaction and Rupture, where I'm just going to kill almost everything when I cast it. Like, I am looking for the giant damage effect. Chandra can kill a thing. It's not really what she's here for. I'm probably going to wind up cutting Insult to Injury. Like, 2 damage to a creature and 2 damage to a player or planeswalker is not that impressive. Also, I have to cast Insult. Like, I can't respond to a fog effect with Insult, might be the biggest issue. Like, when I suddenly realize I need to have cast this, it's too late. Similar damage prevention effect. Suddenly gaining protection from everything. Star of Extinction is a board wipe. Break the Foundations is definitely in here to trigger Enrage. Assassin's Trophy is removal. Yeah, this deck is very weird because it has creature removal in the form of the fight cards, but it's there to trigger Indoraptor as much as it is to actually cause a fight. So it's like, is that removal? Because it can be, or is that um, a fight card in its own category to trigger Indoraptor? And the answer is yes to both, kind of. Like, it's in here for both of those things. It's primarily in here so Indoraptor can fight and trigger Enrage, or so the other dinosaurs can trigger their Enrages while removing cards from the board, but the fact that it can actually remove opponents' things from the board means that it's also removal, and therefore, like, how much creature removal do I need when my creatures can also punch out your dudes? Um, Crackle is in here to be a big damaging bomb. Potential growth, Mage's Duel, Mortality Spear is a kill any permanent type card. Brings me to 22. Alright. That's 23, and we'll come back. So, Neon Dynasty. Oops. Removal. Alright, so nothing under them I can see. Got rid of the other stuff. Rakdos. Vandal Blast. Sultan 3. Carve Extinction. Sun's Trophy. Casualties. Murderous Rider. Crackle. Mortality Spear. And Assassin's Ink. Alright, to Neon Dynasties. Bootlegger Stash, Orfeo, Agnes, Facebreaker. Those are removal. Terra Sunder is removal. Nation, City on Fire, Glistening Dawn, Hoarding Broodlord. Yeah, if I count the one thing as removal, I kind of count this one too. If Slagstorm is on the cusp, then so is Invasion of Karsus. Don't really count Rankle and Torbrand. I can use them as that, but that's not their primary function. Sheoldred's primary function is to kill stuff. So we will put Sheoldred on the list. Fall of Kara Andros can kill things, in addition to giving me a huge army when I cast my other kill spells. Hmm. Tactically, the Embereth Blaze on Virtue of Courage. Axonal, Pugnacious Hammerskull. Servant, Runescar Demon. Warstorm Surge can be removal. I can target my opponent's creatures. It's not its primary function, but it is certainly something I can do. Yeah, let's copy the Warstorm Surge. Can definitely be used as removal if I need it to. Aether Grid is more for pinging stuff, like my own stuff and whatnot, but Ignition is definitely here to kill everything. Draco Seth can be dealing 4 to one target and 3 to each of 2 other targets. Again, he's primarily in here to deal damage to players, but that doesn't mean I won't throw Lightning Blasts and Lightning Bolts at things. Terror of the Peaks is on the same thing as Warstorm Surge. Force of Vigor kills artifacts and enchantments. Dagger Tooth, Copper Dragon. Non-token artifact. Yeah, it's not the primary function of the Baylor, but it is something it can do. That one's a little bit less. Like, I can't guarantee I'll kill the thing I want to, so I'm not running it as removal. It just can. Right, Necromantic Selection. Impact Resonance. That one's just weird. Like, it can be a board wipe. It can be a way to trigger my enrage multiple times, but like that one I'm not even 100% sure I want because it's so weird. Apex Altasaur is kind of a wrath, especially if I can give it indestructible. Like, it is definitely in here to come down and start killing things. So, kind of hard not to put it on the list for cards I have here that are just here to kill my opponent's stuff. Brothers War, not so much. That's not destroying anything. Wrathful Raptors can kill opponent stuff. Dire Hunt. Bloodsucker. Blight. I am never using Saw in Half to kill my opponent's creatures. It is not removal in that regard. Any way, shape, or form. T-Rex, technically, like when it attacks, it gets to just devour a creature. Not literally, of course, it only gets to devour on its way in, but and between what is actual removal and what functions as removal in the deck, I just have so many cards that we can't possibly run all of these. So then it becomes, well, how many of these actually do their thing and do other stuff that I need them to? Drakuseth, Terror, Force, Necromantic, Apex, Ravenous. Alright, which of these are the worst at what they're trying to do? Like, Rupture not being able to hit flying creatures. I think I would rather have things like or not Into the Core, Chain Reaction, um, Chandra's Ignition, things like that, where I get to keep the creature that I'm using to do all this damage. Probably don't need Bonfire. Like, if I draw it on the turn I'm planning to do all the cool stuff, then maybe, but otherwise it's just an awkward burn spell. Yeah, I think Arc Bond is also a better Rupture, if I'm being honest. Yeah, the more I see Insult to Injury on this list, the more I think that's gotta be a cut. Like, it's just very underwhelming. I really like the flipped version of Karsus, and the front side is okay, but yeah, that's an awful lot of work for something that's, the backside is decent, the front side is okay, and that kind of adds up to a mediocre card here. I think we can get rid of Virtue of Courage too. I wasn't super excited about putting it on the list, so I think it's safe to cut it. Hey, we're practically at the hour mark. Alright, what else do I want to cut from this before we call it there? Anything? Alright, so these seem like easy cuts, so we'll get rid of them. Rupture. On. Bonfire. On. Insult. On. Invasion. Wait, hang on, Cars. Oh, wait, hang on. Nope. Did work out. I was like, no, this will give me the invasion set, but yeah, I went to Karsus first, so. Alright. And. Virtue. Alright, so this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more cards off the list. So it's down to 224. Alright, I know I could go for a little bit longer and get some cards off the list. I don't know if I could push it for an entire second hour, though. I do have work later today, so I think we're going to call it there. So we're making progress. It's a little bit of slow going, but we're starting to, set up lists and get rid of redundant cards. So we'll make more progress next time, and I look forward to it. So I will see you then. Thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your day.